Good morning, everyone, and welcome again to the Global Heat Health Information Network. We are so glad that each of you are here with us as we're going to be sharing and learning and setting priorities for the Southeast Asia region. And today I want to focus on 3 issues to share with you a little bit about the global temperature trends and what we understand about changes in the global climate. I'd like to introduce to you the Global Heat Health Information Network, a little bit about who we are and how we work, and then share with you some insights from this global experience that show what we can achieve working together now as the region. But if you take anything away from this talk today, I'd like you to think about this, that it is not only hot and getting hotter, but that all of our actions matter, all of them in how we confront this situation and global crisis. So already your presence here today says that you are a concerned citizen, a concerned scientist, a concerned policymaker who is ready to make a difference. And so your presence here gives me great faith that together we can make a difference to address this situation faster and more efficiently. So the World Meteorological Organization, as we've already heard, monitors the global climate system. As the authoritative voice on weather, water, and climate, we're monitoring the Earth system and doing a checkup on the planet's health. And the data shows that greenhouse gases continue to reach record levels in the atmosphere and bring with it consequences on the global temperatures. And as these temperatures continue to rise faster than ever seen in recorded history, we are approaching and temporarily exceeding the threshold set at 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is considered the threshold of what is manageable and what will be irreversible damages to the global society. Apologies, this is very sticky. And as these global temperatures continue to rise, what basic physics and statistics tells us is that what we should expect to see is more hot weather and more extremes. And this is exactly what we are experiencing. You've already heard that 2024 is expected to be the hottest year ever experienced. And this year, across the planet, we have seen extraordinary temperature records. Communities passing 50, 53 degrees. These are unlivable conditions. This is a future that we don't want. But unfortunately, these are realities that are already being experienced in many places around the world. And as these temperatures continue to rise, we're starting to see other amplified phenomena in the climate system. We're starting to see large concurrent heat waves. And concurrent heat waves are concerning because it affects not only a local community, but much larger regions. And regions depend on each other for agricultural trade, for water systems, for energy systems. And so this also expands the impact that we're seeing from these rising temperatures. We're also seeing important influences on other hazards, such as drought, such as fire, such as localized sea level rise that this extra heat in the system is bringing forward. And so as we think about living in a condition where the oceans have never been hotter and all of these risks are being amplified, we have to think about this question of urgency. How are we going to get ahead of this curve of the expanding risks? And as you know, cities are heating up at twice the global average. And we're going to hear a lot about cities and urban heat later in the session, and so I'm going to leave that to our other speakers this afternoon. But the other thing that we know about heat is that not all heat is equal. There are really important differences in the risks presented by dry heat, by humid heat, by the seasonal and episodic heat waves which happen in the northern hemisphere, often bringing high mortality events, and that heat, which is chronic, which is humid in the tropical and subtropical regions of the world. And so we are learning that we can't assume places like Singapore, which are apparently used to the heat, don't have problems that need to be contended with, because they are living closer to these upper thermal limits of comfort, of livability, and how we work and live in hotter conditions. And so we can't assume that there's a simplified one approach fits all to heat risks. Much of what we understand about heat risks has come from the experience in the northern hemispheres. And that's why this network is so important, that we start to understand what is the lived experience in Southeast Asia. And looking to the future, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change tells us that our choices now affect how much hotter it is going to get and what future generations are likely to experience. Because at this point, it is not whether it will get hotter, it's how much hotter it's going to get and how we're going to learn to cope with that heat. Because unfortunately, we are already locked into this hotter future. You can see that even in the low and very low emission scenarios, the future is going to be much hotter than what we have experienced in past decades. Even if we stopped all of the greenhouse gas emissions today, the gases in the atmosphere are going to continue to warm the planet for up to another 100 years. So we have to stop adding more, and we have to think about what this warmer future looks like. So to ground these scenarios a little bit in reality, most of you here would have experienced firsthand last April's Asian heat wave. And this new study focused on some data from the Philippines shows that the extreme heat event that was experienced would not have happened without climate change. Climate change made that event 30 times more likely and much hotter. And today, we can expect that those types of events can occur every 10 years. But under a 2-degree future scenario, we could expect those impacts to be happening almost every other year. So this raises an important alarm for how we need to adapt. The IPCC also tells us that it is with high certainty that these future exposures are going to bring additional impacts. That as more people are exposed to extreme heat, we can expect more people will get sick and die. And that the risk of this heat is going to continue to grow, especially in areas where there is a confluence of aging and urban populations like there is throughout Southeast Asia. And the science also tells us that those impacts will not be felt equally due to particular differences in population growth and aging in these regions. So what kind of impacts are we talking about? Well, they're very widespread. Not only does heat affect people's health and ability to be productive and active, but it's also impacting our natural environment and ecosystems that we depend upon for agriculture, for water. It affects our cities, our technology and infrastructure, and heat affects, therefore, the economies and the way of life, actually, in many places. Today, as you know, we are struggling to measure and actually quantify the full scale of the impacts that are being experienced worldwide. But some of the best estimates that you've already heard this morning are that heat might be responsible for almost 500,000 deaths each year. The International Labor Organization tells us that 2.4 billion workers are exposed to excessive heat, leading to 22 million heat-related work injuries worldwide. And UNICEF tells us that just last year, 80 million students were hindered in their learning because of heat. The Food and Agricultural Organization tell us that food produced is being lost at 12% due to a lack of cooling in the production and storage pipelines. And that's leading to greater heat-related food insecurity. And the World Bank is telling us that a 1-degree increase is actually leading to a possible 9% increase in global poverty. These are overwhelming figures. But what we know is that these figures translate into real lives in our communities, in our families. That heat is deadly. It's damaging, it's paralyzing, and it absolutely affects us all, but particularly the poor. But we have to use these scary statistics to actually motivate us to do something about these challenges, because all heat deaths are preventable, and we can reduce the impacts in very tangible ways. 6 months ago, we had a landmark moment in the heat and health movement, where the challenges of extreme heat peaked at the highest political levels of attention. The UN Secretary General, apologies in how this is forwarding. The UN Secretary General called upon us all to rise to the challenge and take urgent action on extreme heat, which is why this forum is so critical today. And it may be better for someone to advance these. And so the UN Secretary General called upon countries, called upon communities to reduce their carbon emissions, to protect our workers and the most vulnerable, and to use science and evidence to inform policymakers and make their decisions. And so this call to action signaled that not only urgent action is needed, but that it has to be coordinated to enhance our international, our intersectoral, and our local cooperation. So the GHIN network has been extremely proud to be part of shaping and drafting this call to action, and now playing a role that will coordinate some of its future actions. And so I call on all of you. How will you respond? What can your government do? And how are you going to play a role in this global call to action? So now I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Global Heat Health Information Network and how we work. In 2016, GHIN was founded by a group of concerned experts. And just like yourselves, and including many of you here today, the health community saw these trends were coming, where we were headed and what we needed to do, and started to raise this alarm. And so the World Meteorological Organization, the World Health Organization, public health agencies, a few meteorological services came together to create a space where we can talk about this issue, where we can learn from each other and make a strategy of how to address it. And in 2018, we came together in Hong Kong to launch the global network. And we have a special thanks to Professor Rin, who is here with us today, who actually made that global launch even possible. And so personally, I am very proud that many of you featured in this family photo here are still actively involved in the network. And many of you, in fact, are in this room here today. And from everyone that attended that forum, I think came with an attitude of asking, what role can I play? How can I roll up my sleeves and be part of this bigger movement? And so I welcome you all to this global network. So today, we are thought leaders in this space, and we have provided an opportunity to bring different voices together that otherwise wouldn't be talking to each other. And we believe that with common goals, with a common strategy, that we can leverage all of the unique capabilities from around the world to tackle this together. We're organized by having a global management committee that is comprised of 20 experts, some in the room here today, from around the world. And this committee rotates every 2 years, and we're in the process of nominating 2 youth delegates to our team. And we're now joined by the Southeast Asia Regional Committee as a broader leadership team. And you can see the broad range of organizations represented by the experts on our leadership team. Our network is comprised of around 200 partners, coming mostly from governments, NGOs, academia, and international organizations, but very strong and reputable organizations. And we hope that your organizations will too become part of the network. So how are we organized? Well, in addition to the Global Management Committee, we have a technical support unit based at the WMO in Geneva. And we're here today to launch the first of the regional hubs, and we're working towards identifying and launching 2 more hubs this year in Latin America and South Asia. In 2018, we also realized that we needed common principles, common threads that held us together as a network. And so the community drafted and developed principles that can hold the network accountable, and we ask partners to use these as guiding principles of good practice in their own work. So for example, we have to have an approach that is not alarmist, but is strategic and results-oriented, that is guided by evidence-based and results-based approaches, that is implemented with integrity and can cultivate trust between stakeholders in the information being developed to make decisions with, that efforts are harmonized and aligned with local and national plans, that research and information is open access and transparent, that partnerships are diverse and inclusive and equitable and bringing in the voices of those who are most affected by heat. So these are the principles that we ask our partners to implement through their activities that they contribute to the network. We also identified that we needed a common framework that is based on evidence and experience of what needs to happen to make effective heat action. And this starts with the idea that you need the right people who are engaged through partnerships and capacity building, and that these people have the right knowledge through science that can provide locally relevant information to make informed decisions. That this comes particularly through vulnerability and impact science, as well as science for heat forecasting, warnings, and services. And that finally, effective action only comes through a combination of outreach, communications and understanding the issues, and putting that evidence to action. So you'll see this model again and again in our work, and critically, you play a role in this framework. Because without sharing your successes, your learnings, your innovations, that is what drives the continuous learning throughout the network in its knowledge brokering function. Next, the network is also held together by a focus on specific themes. So we do have 5 global themes where vulnerability and impacts are greatest. And again, we've identified these through the community as being in urban areas, in the occupational health and safety setting, in indoor context, understanding the gaps and the impacts on maternal and child health, as well as the cascading and compounding effects of heat on those multi-hazard risks that I mentioned previous. And our strategy also includes work streams on common actions, such as early warning systems, capacity building, and metrics. So the big question is always how to become a partner. In an effort to be inclusive, it's very easy to become a partner. Our network is based on contributions. And so if you can provide resources which are in kind as your contribution to advancing the field of heat action and align those with the goals of the network, then you're eligible to become a partner. And later this month, we'll be opening up our 2025 partnership campaign, and you'll hear more about that from Jason and the team, so be sure to express your interest in that. So what are the main activities? Well, the network right now is in a significant growth phase because we have received core funding to scale up some of our key areas of work. And this year, we're really focused on amplifying our engagement through starting with this forum this week and expanding into the regional nodes in other parts of the world. We're also expanding our engagement through the UN system, working with, as I mentioned, many other UN agencies on the common call to action, and expanding our communications work with a relaunch of our website and many other new communication activities. We're also focused on delivering this year a scale-up of heat early warning systems and working with our partners in the meteorological services and early warnings for all to strengthen the available information on heat hazards. We're working with the UN partners to develop a common framework for heat risk governance, as well as some specific guidance and thematic tools and other resources. So again, we leverage the work of many of our partners. We conduct this work through working groups, and this is the approach to sort of how we work. And in this last section of the presentation, I really want to share with you some of the insights and successes that we have had in the network that I hope can inspire you as regional partners and will give you ideas of how the region can contribute to the global knowledge on heat, and also help you think about what you are looking for in your participation also in a global network. So just to give you a few examples of what we've been able to do as a community. When the COVID-19 pandemic kicked off in 2020, we knew that we had a problem because we were going into the Northern Hemisphere summer. And not only did we have similar vulnerable groups, but that many of the interventions used for infection control were contradictory to the interventions needed to protect communities from extreme heat. So we could not send people to cooling centers where they might be exposed to the disease. We could not send community outreach workers to knock on doors of vulnerable people. So we had to rethink, and we very quickly were able to bring over 100 experts from 20 countries together, the Centers of Disease Control, our top leading academics, to put our heads together. And within 6 weeks, we produced some authoritative guidance on how to address this complex scenario. And those recommendations were used by the World Health Organizations and other governments to help them set their own policies. And in that first year of the pandemic, our website was accessed over 50,000 times. And for me, this really showed the strength of what we can do as a community when we come together on a common set of actions in a very remarkable and responsive way. That experience also showed us that when you bring reputable institutions together with sound science and inclusive principles, that you become a trusted voice. And over the last year, the GHIN network has been called upon to lead and inform work of G7 and G20 working groups looking at heat, to provide technical support to the UN Secretary General, to support the World Health Organization and the World Meteorological Organization in their technical work, and also important partners like Google and the Red Cross movement, who are also working on heat issues. They've been coming to us as a trusted voice in the science, and this is only possible thanks to the collective nature and the high integrity of the work of our partners. We have also witnessed our partners been able to use the network to expand and improve their own work. Through engagement in our working groups, in our activities, in our forums, they have found new partners across transboundary borders, across institutional lines, finding new partners, architects, anthropologists, epidemiologists who weren't part of previous projects to strengthen their research, to be able to test innovations from one region in another. And so we pride ourselves on being inclusive so that we can help partners like yourself find new partners that will improve your own work and find more resources to do more extraordinary work together. And to provide one more example, the role of the network to synthesize what is working and what isn't is really critical to being able to take faster action and promote what we know is going to make a difference. So we have been working a lot to understand the role of heat action plans, how effective these plans are, how to make them more effective, how to use them as instruments to bring multi-sectoral partners together. And so we have created, thanks to the contributions of our partners, the only online repository of over 150 heat action plans and case studies of the lived experience of how those plans have been implemented. We've been able to then interview partners, understand what's working and how to improve the next generation of heat plans. But again, this has only happened through the contributions of the network, that we've been able to take a critical perspective and see how do we move this instrument further, faster. We are also working right now on a global synthesis report of heat impacts, as well as the effectiveness of heat interventions being implemented worldwide. So together as a network, we have built an astonishing repository of technical tools and resources. Our website features not only the inventory I've mentioned, but online training courses, a vast library of resources, tools, research projects, examples of other projects being implemented around the world. Every month we publish a newsletter that is showcasing new opportunities, new projects, new findings that is coming from you. It is the voice of the community in what is happening and also what is needed. And so here at the QR code, you can also subscribe to this global newsletter and add your contributions to this global voice. And so I think you're starting to see that the network over the last 8 years has really been helping to shift our understanding and the narrative in not only how heat affects society, but also what we can do about it. So we've helped train the media on how to cover heat risks. We have been leveraging actions like the Red Cross movement Heat Action Day, and been working with the media focal points across many of our organizations behind the scenes. And one last example that has already been mentioned is the network's role in the UN call to action. Over the last 6 months, we have also been working to map and analyze the investments across the UN system and selected countries. And just 2 weeks ago in Geneva, we convened experts from 10 countries and the health focal points from 18 UN agencies and some development banks to better understand how we can work together, how a common framework for heat risk governance can help shape the future investments of heat and our intersectoral cooperation. This has never happened before, and we were very proud to be able to host and convene this conversation. But the network only found itself at the middle of this effort because of the scope of our expertise and because our network's belief that it is not just the responsibility of the health community to save lives. Heat is everyone's problem, and it is also everyone's business. And we have to work across the political aisle, the technical divisions, and be able to leverage the strength of a vast diversity of actors to address this challenge. And in closing, back to my opening statement that all actions matter. There are tangible solutions to be implemented that will help all of us confront this massive challenge. And so no matter what sector you are in or what role your institution plays, from insurance to education to healthcare, there is a role to play in heat action. There is a vast array of opportunities that can help communities become more heat resilient. Thank you very much. I'm now honored to pass over to my esteemed colleague, Jason Lee, to tell us about the vision for the Southeast Asia Network.
Good morning. I think you can see from my poker face, but I'm exceptionally happy to see friends, not often, for those of us in this business of heat health, come together in one setting. So for me, that is the first tick, that from a local perspective, that the players, we call them the partners, most, if not all of you are in this room. I'm also delighted to see our regional friends and colleagues, and then with support from our global network. And I think this is a very precious moment. I hope in years when we look back, right, we'll remember this day, the birth of this conversation, and as we continue to invite you to partake in this exercise. I want to thank straight away the Wellcome Trust, and US Med, my dean is here. I always like, he always reminds us when it's important thing to solve, right? Don't worry about the budget first. Do the important things, and find the money along the way, So I love that spirit. And Straits Time, you are here too, for partnering us, because we need you to advocate through media comms too. We have tried our best not to overstuff content. There's always this risk, right? 4 full days, let's pack. And you see the program being arranged as such that we give you time to hear, reflect, interact, to debate, to discuss. We really want this co-creation, co-development. I learned from my own med schools, right? No point deriving policies without the person in mind. So we want you to be responsible from the onset. We don't have the full plan yet. We have at best a version 1. We welcome you, to criticize, to comment as we co-partake this exercise. Very quickly, I know we are running out of time, right? And I was particularly inspired when I was transiting it from DSO National Labs to NUS Medicine. I had a vacation in Shanghai. Someone told me there's a forum in Hong Kong. I told my wife, could I do a detour? Can I visit Hong Kong? Very glad that I did. I was truly inspired that the thermal physiology work that I used to do in my past life, in my old job, can be expanded beyond that community. So my call is, there must be a few of you here in this room. Join our tribe. Be inspired. Do something after this forum. We just need a few of you, if not most of you. I was part of that process, so I invite you to join me. Fast forward to 2023 at COP28, right? In Dubai, we make the first announcement that we will, in partnership with the global network, set out this regional hub. And then last year, we gathered both the global management committee, and then we formed our regional committee to shape the future of what this global network should do and what are the regional efforts we want to prioritize. So leveraging on this particular forum again, I asked that during the course of the next 4 days, we want to gather your feedback so that we can partner you, in this common mandate that we are in. Joy said this is our class photo. So here I present to you our regional steering committee members. You can see a mixed representations across sectors, across disciplines. This is the only way we can effect changes at large. For the PhD students there, I'm moving ahead, I always say that you must go deep, but you must go deep horizontally too. Understand the lingos of other sectors, so when the opportunities are there, you don't miss it. Because this day, you can ask a lot of things from your ChatGPT, right? So we expect you to have a double PhD if you are doing a PhD not too vertically, one must go horizontally. I call that the death in breath. Because usually big ticket items in the world need a few disciplines, sectors to resolve. We still have one more slot. I should put an empty slot. Looking for a younger soul to join us. The future is yours. Do express your interest to join our regional committee. We need your voice. And for governance, you see some of our global management committee are actually in person here. Thank you for making the effort. So Joy, Ren Chao, Ollie, myself, we sit in the global networks. For governance, you heard that we are going to effect more regional hubs. So for governance sake, we want to ensure there are common individuals that sit in both global and regional hubs. So collectively, if I may, we envision this hub to serve as a key platform for us in this part of the world, Southeast Asia, to prepare and protect our people from the health impacts of extreme heat, direct exposure, and often indirectly. We'll try not to recreate, or we want to leverage on your existing platforms. You heard from Joy, your network, maybe even your resources and know-how to undertake this exercise. Okay, why Southeast Asia Heat Health Hub? Heat and humidity are actually not new to us in this part of the world. Yeah? And this is also a key reason why for the longest time we haven't taken serious actions to counter it till now. In Southeast Asia, the chronic thermal discomfort is a challenge for us, leading to behavior changes. So in this part of the world, there is no such concept I can clock my physical activity count by commuting to work, walking, cycling. I don't think most of you do that. We are deprived of that, and we sort of said that is our way of life. By truly think a place that is not walkable cannot be healthy. But look at the infra in Singapore. We can't complain. One of the best around the world. But ask anyone here in the room, you belong to that category, can avoid the heat at all costs. So we are being penalized in other indirect ways. But we have workers out in the field that don't have this choice of staying indoor, blasting the aircon. And therefore, we experience not just one, but multiple damages. And you relate it to the super age society we are anticipating, that day will come that we will face not just this chronic exposure leading to behavior change, we also experience the classic heat-induced mortality in the near future. Guys, we really do not want that headline news to appear one day, then we take actions. For those who know, in 2018, we experienced one bad heat stroke that shook the whole system. Heat is unique. It is silent. It's not like a tornado. You see the aftermath. We can be quite forgetful. Sometimes leadership change in organizations. We forget about that particular incident. So remind ourselves as if that death was yesterday. So if the earlier group photo didn't turn out well, this can be used as a replacement. How we are the boiling frogs. I said it many times. This really depicts the Southeast Asians' response to chronic heat and humidity. So don't get too comfortable. You are being cooked very slowly. These are representative areas of concern, not exhaustive, of course. For example, marginalized populations, including women and girls, have higher risk due to discriminatory gender norms, power relations, structures, inequalities. A warming world will only exacerbate these impacts. So layer onto your existing issues. Heat can be seen sometimes as a vertical and also horizontal. Yeah. The tenets and pillars of human health and well-being, how well you exercise, how well you eat, how well you sleep. I tell you, heat can negatively impact each of these. Therefore, it will only exacerbate whatever we are experiencing now. So take actions. We have decided to focus on 3 areas for our region. But note, this doesn't mean we'll ignore other aspects of heat health. Having certain focus will allow us to prioritize. Again, we welcome your feedback. In terms of our goals, we have categorized them under people, science, info, and action. Really, the overarching goal is to really reduce heat-related risks by forming or forging partnerships across disciplines. We want to drive policy change, generate actionable knowledge, and tools to support effective communication and decision-making. Underlying with this word called trust, we need the sectors to come together. I also challenge how we operate today at universities, at governments. Maybe there needs to be a reshape. Don't be cast in stone how we undertake business in the future. We have learned, if we agree this is with great urgency, right? We should see this as a great opportunity to pull people together. The pandemic has taught us if we put our mind and souls together, we can hack the greatest challenge of our lifetime. So I see this as an opportunity. Breaking our goals to another level, here are our 4 key objectives. Number 1, to establish platform. Hopefully, the Southeast Asia Hub will be a key platform to engage key stakeholders. Number 2, to develop regional focused heat health research and policy. Number 3, to create programs to share knowledge, experiences, and our research that's generated from each of your IHLs, and to advocate, of course, evidence-based policies to reduce heat-related health risks. Again, we welcome your inputs for the exact how. We have version 1, these are the goals and objectives, but how to effect these objectives, what you can bring onto the table is what we want to hear from you across these next 4 days. So as an example, I listed the broad goals, the objectives, very specific to second objective in developing regional focused heat health research. Again, thank you to Prof. Ren Chow from Hong Kong University, who serves also as the co-editor-in-chief for Urban Climate, for blessing and support in accepting our proposal to have a special issue based on the content to be discussed in this forum. I see Nick there. Nick, thank you, for driving that proposal. I'm glad you are proud that it has been, I think, based on the correspondence, a yes in principle. Excellent. Another example in sharing experiences and research. Here are some photos depicting the work we, Singapore, Vietnam, Cambodia, South Korea, did through Project HeatSafe. I want to give a shout. Each time I talk about Project HeatSafe, I talk about Ministry of Manpower, nicely called MOM, known as Mom. Nobody loves you more than your mom, trust me. They might be nagging at you, but it's all out of love. Some countries call it MOL, Ministry of Labor, but it's also known as the Ministry of Love. And I ask for empathy as we undertake this work. We are the privileged ones. So do something, maybe be small or big, to move this needle. I'm very proud that following the completion of Project HeatSafe, we'll be scaling the methodology. And Dr. Ifi, you must be in this room in Rhode Island next year, in partnership with, this year, we're already in 2025, in partnership with ILO to scale the methodology accordingly. Through this slide, I want to say that we are not just dealing with numbers and statistics. I want you to see these photos. We are here to augment lives and livelihoods. See these numbers as people and remember them. Just imagine with me, in one of these photos is someone whom you know, your brother, your sister, your son, your daughter, your mom or dad. It brings a lot more meaning to the work that we undertake here. I travel quite a lot in Southeast Asia. To be honest, when I look at the farmers, they're telling me, don't tell me about health risks. I can't even see next week. For them, it's livelihood. And also see from their lens. I ask that you have the opportunity, get to the ground. Don't stay in the office and write your papers. No, you will bring a lot more meaning to the work you undertake by looking from their lens. So in terms of advocacy, objective 4, if you still remember one of my 4 objectives, our objectives, we are partnering the Earth Journalism Network, EJN, at this meeting to produce specific news pieces relevant to each of these countries in Southeast Asia following this particular meeting here. So look out for those outputs, and also thank you for partnering us. So throughout this meeting here, I invite you to take a moment to reflect anytime you wish, what small yet impactful impacts you can commit. Right now, your commitment to have that wall just outside this room, a phrase that embodies your resolve to make a difference. You are part of the tribe. Place it on that commitment wall throughout the course of these 4 days as a symbol of unity and hope. Let your voice be part of this powerful mandate. Yeah, so I ask you to partake in this exercise. This is not a monologue. We want discussion and shape this accordingly. Finally, we are calling for partnerships. You heard from Joy. Don't worry, very quickly I'll remove the slide so you won't see the QR code, but I just will flash it out. See this QR code, express your interest. Don't have to do it now if you are not convinced. Hold your gun. During the course of these 3-4 days, I'm sure many of you will be inspired, and in your own respective ways and platforms, express your interests. Come directly to us. I'll scan this code accordingly. Okay, I'm dashing through because I want to leave some time for a quick Q&A. As always, I have to slot this in. This is advertisement time. We are recruiting. Currently at 46 PAC strong. It's a combination of the Human Potential Translational Research Program, very mouthful, one of the 10 translational research program in the School of Medicine. And of course, HRPC. Very proud to say we have 46 now, 24 ladies, 22 gentlemen. So please consider us. Yeah, we are constantly recruiting. I also, from the onset, say a big thank you to my team. They are at the back. Lydia, Joyce, for championing this meeting, all the logistics behind, and of course the event organizer for your tireless efforts to make this meeting possible. You saw the video. I'm not sure how many of you understood at the final part, different phases in different languages. What it means is, let us rise above the heat. So may this be our mantra throughout the course of this forum here. Let us rise above the heat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Jason and Dr. Joy, for sharing your insights and for insights for us to think about as we craft the future of this regional hub. We do have time for a couple of short questions, so please use the pigeonhole to post your questions, or else raise your hand and we will come to you. I have one question. We need specialized, recognized metrics for diagnosing heat and heat health impacts. Is GHIN active in this space? If yes, what is being done?
Great, so I guess that question is for me. So yes, absolutely, we are working on this. One of the things that we are doing is working with a network of public health agencies to globally survey how heat mortality and morbidity is being recorded through national surveillance systems worldwide. And we're trying to synthesize that to come up with guidelines and resources to improve the measurement and recording of heat-related impacts. So yes, there is a work stream happening on this.
All right. Time for perhaps one more question.
For you.
Yes, if not, I can get started. This one is for Jason. I think Jason's my boss, so that's the background that you need for this question. And I notice throughout our work in HeatSafe and also in HRPC, there is a lot of cross-faculty collaboration. For example, with the Faculty of Architecture here at NUS, with a lot of our staff also on the ground. We have our historians, our physiologists, our epidemiologists. I wonder if that level of collaboration is also what you see when you visit other universities in the region, how can we also encourage them to practice this collaboration?
Testing 1, 2, 3. The short answer is no. No, I mean, could be limited exposure on my part, but I don't see that play out actively across faculties yet. Partly because the general outlook or response to heat and humidity in our part of the world, I just said we are the boiling frogs. No? Many are still not convinced yet, honestly. I'm thinking this has always been a hot and humid environment with a little bit of increase. What is the problem? Even in Singapore, I mean, 5 years back, I don't hear this conversation as loud as now. For those local individuals here, you will remember heat. You talk about heat, they will say it's a military problem, maybe MOM, but Ministry of Manpower. But in recent years, I think it has opened up. I like to think that the economic implication must be one of the reasons why we begin to pay a bit more attention and also anticipating. And I'm very proud of the nation. We are not just looking at the problem now. For example, in the super aging society, we'll see there will be more individuals, they are more vulnerable to extreme heat. So we better start the work right now to prepare for the future. But I'm optimist. I think we need to create the awareness, therefore the advocacy exercise must commence. Let a few individuals champion this and always see from their perspective. I'm also not a strong believer we can cut and paste the Singapore model and apply it. And I like to call upon Singapore to look at how community efforts are done outside Singapore. If I may be maybe candidly critical, I think we are too dependent on our government. Almost every problem is the government must sort out my problem. They take some tax, so make them do the work. And because our goalpost, our standard is so high, no one should die of extreme heat. Policies alone will be insufficient. We need community efforts. So that is one thing I'm very excited to learn how our regional colleagues undertake and deal with extreme heat with lesser resources in a very creative way. That is our third theme or third focus area in our hub, the cultural, traditional practices on heat management.
Thanks, Jason. And I think we're also able to answer another one of our questions. What is the biggest obstacle for interdisciplinary collaboration? You heard it right there. And I know there are a lot of ongoing questions, but we've reached the end of the Q&A session. Please feel free to approach Prof. Jason or Dr. Joy during the lunch break or thereafter to ask your specific questions. Let's give Dr. Joy and Prof. Jason once again a round of applause.